And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, Matthew and Chris Dawson. CD, what is going on? What's going on? What's going on? It is week 9. Conference races are heating up, and not just Power 5 conferences. No. We got 2 very key G5 games to cover that have grand implications on the Mountain West and the Sun Belt. We're excited. Our G5 videos have been doing really well, so thank you guys so much for the support. But in general, feels like we've been doing really well, guys. So thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys like the content, like the video, give us a subscription. We're almost at 100 subscribers. I can't believe it. Can you? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we had 3-4 views on a video, and now it's like, I don't know. It's been awesome. It's been awesome seeing the growth. But what are you excited about for this week?
Well, it's the last week in October, right? October has felt like it's been going on forever, and we've learned so much. But then we get November, and it's the grind part. This seems like an off week, right? Casuals or people are telling you like, oh, nothing much can happen this week. No, something's going to happen every week. It always does, especially in conference play. It's also the last week before the playoff selection committee does their rankings, right? The college football playoff rankings come out next Tuesday. So this is the last chance for these teams to put themselves out there, get the resume boosters, eye test boosters, right? Before those rankings, those initial rankings. We got a lot of good games to talk about. Upsets, maybe. We're going to try to get those in our upset predictions. So stay tuned at the end of the video for that. I know we're both looking to get back on track with our predictions. We've been hot. We were hot early, and then we've kind of died off down, but we feel pretty good about this week, I think.
I do. And also, dude, these games, like people are talking about, oh, this is an off week. Dude, every single one of these games has some sort of conference championship implication. Like It does. It literally does. Every single one of these games. So, yeah, stay tuned in. Once again, if you guys like the content, like the video. And let us know, too. Like, did we miss a team? Like, are there other games you want us to cover? Comment, let us know, right? Or send us an email at theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at theredshirtsoft. You could have gotten some line value on some picks that, we put out there early. So there's another benefit of following us on Twitter as well. And we love interacting with you guys. We really do. So thank you guys so much. CD, are you ready to get into it?
Yeah, real quick, I do want to say something because we are a college football show, and because it's not just about the season, recruiting is 12 months a year. If you're watching tomorrow, which is Thursday, October 26th, right, we're recording this Wednesday before tonight or yesterday for you guys. Ryan Wingo, 5-star guy, wide receiver, is committing to either Missouri or Texas. Seem like the 2 favorites. Missouri would be awesome. I know we're both rooting for that. Obviously,
that'd be crazy. In-state talent, just keep it in.
That would be, and for Eli Drinkwitz and Brady Cook and all the, like, they're having great momentum right now. Luther Bird is a prime example of why Ryan Wingo is thinking about going to Missouri. And it'd be incredible. Obviously, for college football, the future of Missouri in the new SEC, like this is awesome. I think this is a big time recruitment. But we'll see what happens tonight.
If you're not familiar with who Ryan Wingo is, he's a wide receiver from St. Louis. He will be playing valuable minutes next year, regardless of where he goes. So
5-star freshman, wide receiver. He is very talented player.
Very, very talented. And there's a lot of other recruiting stuff going on as well, but we're not going to be covering that today. Let's get into these previews. Oh, sorry about that. And Georgia versus Florida in the world's largest outdoor tailgate. One of the few places where I'm like kind of okay with this being a neutral site game. I would still rather see like a game like this being played in Gainesville, right, or Athens.
Could you imagine? You imagine
this game being played in Gainesville would be crazy. But at the same time, I'll let it slide. If it were up to me, I would not have it a neutral site game, but I'll let it slide. This is a 14.5-point spread. Georgia is what, 1-6 against the spread? 1-7. They have not been that good. Now Florida, guess who has been playing well all year? His name is Graham
motherfucking Mertz, man.
Wild. That's Wisconsin downgraded at quarterback when they got him out of there,
which is crazy. And Florida said in the transfer market, they're like, we wanted one quarterback, and it was Graham Mertz. And other than Shador Sanders, who had no chance of going anywhere else, like, what other transfer quarterback? Yeah. What other transfer quarterback has been a hit? Devin
Because guess
Leary,
what?
no.
Because guess what? We were like, well, why didn't you go after Devin Leary? Why didn't you go after Sam Hartman? Why didn't you go after, or when Grayson McCall was in the
Brennan
transfer,
Armstrong, Phil
Brennan Armstrong,
Jerkovich.
like so many guys, we were like, oh yeah, like how did you sell on Graham Mertz? Guess who was wrong? Us, and I'm sure a lot of other people were too. So this is kind of a crazy game. I mean, I I think Florida has a chance. Is that crazy to say? I
No,
think Florida
absolutely not.
has a chance.
I think 2 weeks ago I would have said no. I think after that Kentucky lost, Florida, got their act together against Vanderbilt and South Carolina, but also Georgia. Like the elephant in the room here is no Brock Bowers, right? We haven't really
Yep.
seen Georgia be really tested after Brock Bowers. I mean, they slept walk through Vanderbilt, and now they're playing Florida, right? And this is this is a really really interesting game. I'll give you my pick real quick. I'm gonna go Georgia to win, just because I don't feel good enough about Florida at a neutral site to take them to win that much. But I will take Florida to cover. I do think 14.5 is a lot in a rivalry game. I do think Graham Mertz might make some plays, but also like for Georgia, the key to victory here is yes, no Brock Bowers. You'd like to see some of the wide receivers step up, but that running game has to get going. Hopefully, your backs are getting more and more healthy as the year's going on. You
Kendall
saw
Milton is
Kentucky,
back, and he
which
played well.
Georgia's has actually been running the ball really, really efficiently. Their offense, in large part, has been fantastic. Outside of maybe a quarter or two against Auburn, um, but no Brock Bowers obviously changed that. But you saw Kentucky run all over Florida, right? And I think you have to look at that and be like, we can do that too, and hopefully continue to do that. But I do think Florida and Billy Napier really, really want to win this game. I think they really believe they can win this game. And
Yes,
this would be massive, massive implications
dude.
for Florida to win this
Recruiting,
game.
recruiting wise, if Florida
Oh
wins
my.
this game, it would be ballistic.
Well, I'll give you another part. I'll give you another part. Florida would control their own destiny if they win this football game in terms of the SEC East. Now, yes,
Yes,
they still have at LSU and at Missouri, and then just for kickers and out of conference, they got to finish off with Florida State. But talk about momentum in year two for Billy Napier would be awesome, awesome to see for them.
yeah. I'll say this about look, depending on where your bar is at for like elite quarterback play, like you can make the argument that Carson Beck has been an elite quarterback this year. Now, a large part of that is because of Brock Bowers. I think though, if Carson Beck continues to ball out the way that he is, even without Brock Bowers, he should be a high consideration for the Heisman Trophy. A
Yep.
high consideration. This offense has been operating at as high level as it is, which by the way, it is operating at a very high level. And people I don't think are really looking at it like this because it looks different. It's not Todd Monken's offense, right? It's not maybe as explosive as it was, but like it is operating at an insanely high level, and it's because of Carson Beck. He's so good. It honestly is a quarterback duel today, but I do agree if Georgia's able to run the ball the way Kentucky was able to run the ball against Florida. In fact, just in the past couple games, Florida's been giving up some gashes for sure in the run game. I think Georgia could take advantage of that. And Kendall Milton has been playing really well since he's come back. I think the run game has gotten a huge boost with just him coming back. So I'll take Georgia to win as well, but I'll also take Florida to cover. I think in a rivalry game, laying 2 touchdowns and a hook. The hook was what did it for me, baby. Oh,
Yeah, I agree. I do think the matchup to watch here is going to be Ricky Pearsall against a really talented Georgia secondary. I think, and Graham Mertz, right? I think we saw the last time we saw him play, he diced up South Carolina. Now, who hasn't diced up South Carolina yet, but he still did it. 423 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks is incredibly impressive on the road in the SEC, right? I do think, like you mentioned it, Carson Beck's got a chance to vault himself into Heisman contenders. Both these teams, their toughest stretch of their schedule is starting now. It's starting this weekend and the rest of November, right? Georgia has, we mentioned they're playing Florida. They still have Missouri and at Tennessee, and then they host Mississippi in the middle of that from the SEC West. Like this is prime spot for everyone who's the Georgia naysayers, for Georgia to prove them wrong, be like, no, we're legit this year. We just turn on when we want to. And Carson Beck becomes a Heisman contender and implications for, a top 60 pick in the NFL draft. Graham Mertz can do the same thing. Him and Billy Napier can really cement themselves as, hey, we're for real here. And Florida, it's not just recruiting success. It's not just that. It's actually on the field. Right? This Florida team, I believe, is a much different football team that we saw week 1 against Utah. Right? Utah does that to a lot of people, right? That defense, especially when they were pretty healthy defensively in week 1. And now Florida kind of is getting their act together. That's been playing well, especially at home. And yes, it's neutral site, but they're still going to have 50% of the stadium is going to be Florida for sure, which will help them.
Let's talk about Utah at home, Rice Eccles. At home, that's a big deal versus Oregon. Two teams, well, trending up, I think. I know Oregon lost to Washington, but like it was on the road. They had a chance to win that game. They were 3 yards away from winning that game. I mean, come on, and a missed field goal. So and a coaching blunder at the end of the first half. So any one of those things happen, and Oregon wins that football game. I believe so. Talk about just a balanced Oregon team. I mean, there is a reason that this line is at 6.5, even on the road for Oregon. Like, this is a really good football team. And while we've seen Utah's offense prove a lot more efficient with Bryson Barnes at the helm the last 2 games, Cal and Southern California are not very good defenses. And this Utah team is just decimated with injuries. All over the place. And we talked about it. Kyle Whittingham, up to this point, is your Pac-12 Coach of the Year. That could change the next couple of weeks. Sure, but we're telling you that today, if there were votes today, there's zero reason why he should not get every single vote. Zero reason. So I want to hear what you think about this game. It's interesting that it's at 6.5. There's not even a 7 out there. They're all at 6.5.
And I don't think that line's going to be moving.
Is that because the books don't want it to move to 7 because they know that the Sharps are going to be all over Utah there, or what?
I do think, like, in college football, like, lines are relative, right, for each team. Like in Iowa, point spread that's 2.5 or 3.5 is massive compared to, like, if it was 3.5 for Colorado or USC, right? But Utah is one of the same teams where, like, being under touchdown is important for these books here. I think that's the reason why it's not moving. It's so hard not to take Utah here. I mean,
there's a right pick, I think.
I have to go with Oregon to win and Oregon to cover. I think they're really, really good. I've been really impressed with them. But we said last week, and we talked about USC and Utah. Neither of us felt good about that game. We both took USC, I believe. And my rule was, like, usually I just don't pick against Kyle Whittingham. And more times than not, like, he's gonna make you burn, especially when people don't think he can do it. But I think Oregon's a wagon. I think Oregon is significantly better than USC. I do think, yes, Utah at home is so dangerous, but the injuries at some point they're going to catch up to you. And I think this Oregon roster is fantastic. Bo Nix continues to impress me every time he plays. Just uber veteran player that just makes plays. Their O-line's playing pretty fantastic. I was very impressed with how they played against Washington State.
And I'll say this real quick about their offensive line. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that they're kind of 2 offensive lines that are, like, kind of elite that we've seen this year, and that's Oregon State and blank, whatever. But then right in that next tier, like almost in that elite category, has been Oregon this year. They're on the offensive line. And we did not, like, there were so many question marks going in the year, and they were playing fantastic. But continue.
Yeah, I think that O-line gives them the advantage here because
Michigan was the other one. Sorry.
Thank you. Washington State has 2 really good edge rushers. Their defense is very opportunistic at times, especially, and Oregon moved the ball very, very well against them. And defensively, they shut down, especially in that second half, a Cam Ward guy who, when we see him on his highs, he is unstoppable. And in the first half, he made some plays, whatever. But in that second half, he did his best, and Oregon really buckled down. I do think the difference in this game here is Bucky Irving, man. He is incredible. I mean, I'm a little biased because I love Bucky Irving, but he's awesome every time he touches the ball. I mean, he has 87 carries. He's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. I get it. Some of it's inflated, but we're in the middle of conference play now. Like, that That is impressive. Obviously, Bo Nix and Troy Franklin are incredible duo. But yeah, I'm going to give the edge to Oregon here because of that defense. I think is improved and playing really well. And then also, I think Bucky Irving and that O line is going to make a difference and be able to dent that Utah defense.
Yeah, I think the right pick is Oregon and to cover, but I'm gonna pick Utah to cover, and I'm gonna pick them to win. Only for the sole reason,
What?
for the sole reason that they're at home. And guess what, dude? I know that that's not the right pick. I know it's not, but I'm not gonna sit here and get burned again when I fade Utah when they're at home. I'm not gonna do it. Now, granted, do I think Oregon's offensive line is a good matchup for Utah's defensive line? Sure. But so is Oregon State's. And yes, Oregon State won. They scored 21 points. They had one explosive play in the game. I mean, other than that, I mean, now granted, Oregon has a much more diverse passing game, but I don't think Damian Martinez is that much worse than Bucky Irving. In fact, I think in a lot of ways he's better,
Wow.
which is a crazy thing to say. But I don't know, dude. I have this feeling that Kyle Whittingham is just gonna find a way to make this game close, and this is just solely a field pick, man. Like, there's no reason. There's zero reason that I think. Like it is so hard to pick Utah here. It's so hard to pick Utah here, but I have to, man. They're at home. They're at home. When was the last time they lost at home? COVID? I think it was COVID.
In which I don't think the Pac-12 had fans, if any.
Yeah, so I don't even I don't know what the stat is, but they have dominated at home. I think Bo Nix is a really good quarterback, and guess what he's done? He's taking care of the football, which Utah is taking advantage of. That's how they've been able to win these games. So I do think if Bo Nix takes care of the football and they're able to run the ball effectively, I think Oregon wins this game for sure. But I can't.
Yeah,
I can't do it. I can't pick against Kyle Whittingham at home, and I know I've done it this year, and I've been burned. But
yeah, I don't hate the pick, even though I'm pretty surprised by it. But it's also like sometimes college football is irrational. Like sometimes like Utah winning football games does not make sense, but like they do. They have for 3 years now, and you have to give them credit for that. I do think like Bryson Barnes, yes, they moved the ball against USC and California. Obviously, I think it's a different beast. It's nice to come at home. Beast. It's nice for Bryson Barnes after the bye week, and then Cal, and then like he's getting more reps. It's firmly his job. Cam Rising got officially out for the year, and they have confidence in him. But also like outside of like the running backs, like they had like 70 yards passing against USC. Like to wide receivers and tight ends. And like
I understand.
Like I think if they were healthy, they're tight ends. I don't care. Like Cam Rising, elite player, obviously. I think he changes his offense into a legit Pac-12 and playoff contender team. But without the tight ends, without the defensive injuries, I think it's going to catch up to them. To be honest, selfishly, I would love to be proved wrong. I think Utah winning at home would be incredible. The problem is I think the Pac-12 needs Oregon to continue to win, and Washington to continue to win, and kind of meet on a collision course back again for rematch number 2, if their best chance is making the playoffs. But yeah, this is going to be an incredible game. 2:30 on, I believe it's on Fox. It's going to be fantastic up there in Salt Lake City.
I agree, and again, you're right. We're going to come back here. We're going to look at this on Sunday, and we're going to talk about why it was the right pick to pick Oregon and why they won by 2 touchdowns. That's just what's going to happen. But
you also have to understand, like for our viewers here, like it is never the wrong pick to pick Utah. It is never a bad idea to take Utah, to ride with Utah, because more times than not, you're going to be a very, very successful man.
I agree. Kyle Whittingham, dog. Let's talk more Duke football, which we've been talking about a lot this year. You know why? Because they're playing in big time games. Once again, Duke on the road.
They deserve it.
Playing the Jeff Brom, fighting Jack Plumbers at Louisville. Spreads Louisville -4. I believe there's some 4.5s out there. Not entirely sure, but I mean, is Riley Leonard going to play? I was shocked that he went out there on the field and played against Florida State. I was shocked.
I was a little bit upset. About that.
I'm sure that there was training staff that medically cleared him to play, but I mean, probably could have benefited him to sit out another week, man. So, I mean, but granted, Duke played really well, played Florida State really well until that fourth quarter. Just kind of got burned out there. Miles Jones is the number one graded cornerback in PFF. He handled Keon Coleman. Will he
Which is
handle
incredible.
Jamari Thrash? I don't know. Two very different players in terms of their physicality and their specialties and what they do as players. I think the key is here. I think Duke just got to stop the run here. Jawar Jordan, I think just got to stop the run.
Yeah, and also like to me, I think the most important player, regardless of who plays quarterback, I think if Leonard plays, I think he's going to be hobbled, like we saw in that first half against Florida State. And if they're backup quarterbacks, and they're obviously limited with their offense, it's about Jack Plummer, right? We saw him play and take care of the football against Notre Dame, and let the rest of the team help him win the football game. And Jeff Brom had a brilliant plan how to attack that. And then we saw the next week against Pitt, and he had 3 turnovers, and they got shut out in the second half, and they lost by 17 points to an awful Pitt team.
Terrible Pitt team.
Yes.
Terrible Pitt team.
I mean, that's been Jeff Brom's career at Purdue. We've seen it where they get up for these big games, and then they drop a game where they shouldn't lose, right? But they had a bye week, a chance to get it right, chance to sit with that loss all week. I'm going to take Louisville at home. I'm going to take them to win. I'll take them to cover. I'll take the 4 points. As much as it's annoying, like we talked about it, Utah, like picking against Kyle Whittingham, like typically is a bad idea. And picking against Mike Elko this year and in his career at Duke has been a bad idea. But I think the matchup to watch here is, yes, like the players in the field are fantastic, but Jeff Brom versus Mike Elko is awesome.
Unreal coaching matchup. Arguably the best coaching matchup in the ACC. Is that crazy to say? No, that's not crazy to say.
In terms of like on field, like game man, like
play calling, defensive, and like scheme wise, like that is the best matchup in the ACC.
You give someone 7 days to prepare their team to play football. Like offensively, I'm going to pick Jeff Brom. Defensively, I'm probably going to pick Mike Elko in the ACC. It's fantastic. I do think I just feel bad for Duke, man. I feel bad for Duke. I think Louisville's pissed off though. They still have a chance to make the ACC championship game, right? And so does Duke, for that matter, too. Both these teams are one loss in conference.
Because North Carolina lost.
Yeah,
to Georgia Tech. That's why they still have a chance.
Or to Virginia, but
to Virginia, yeah.
That's even worse.
Gosh.
But yeah, I'm gonna go. I think they're gonna be running the football. I think Jamari Thrash is gonna get his. I think Jeff Brom will have scheme up opportunities for them. Well, it won't be all game, but they'll pick their spots and when they can attack this defense, and they'll make some big plays and maybe pull away in the fourth quarter and by 10, 11 points.
I think this is gonna be an absolute knuckle bruiser of a game. I think, you give Jeff Brom 2 weeks to dial in. That's just what it is. I feel weird picking against Elko, but the bye week after the loss, give me Louisville at home. I agree with you, and I'll take the 4 points as well. Even though this total's at 46.5, 46 right now. So it wouldn't be crazy to middle this and take Duke +4, which I really thought about doing, but I don't know. I think if Louisville again finds a way, if Jeff Brom finds a way to not put so much pressure on Jack Plummer, plus, dude, it was a rainy game. Pitt's gonna have that one game every year where they just lay it all out there. Some bad turnovers by Jack Plummer. I trust him to figure that out. But that was the Jack Plummer game that you got out of the way, right? That was the game you got out of the way. Yeah, and if Riley Leonard's not 100%, I can't in the right mindset take Duke.
Yeah, that's the hard part. And for both these teams looking ahead, obviously they play each other this week, and then Duke has a somewhat manageable schedule down the stretch, right? You got at North Carolina is the only tough one that you're really circling. You got Wake Forest, Virginia, and Pitt in between, and those are bottom half of the ACC teams, all very beatable regardless of who your quarterback is. I think ideally you'd love, to squeak out a win here on the road and then, get Riley Leonard healthy for North Carolina. And yes, North Carolina lost to Virginia, but they're still a good football team. Like Yes, they played horribly for 60 minutes of a football game, but that's still gonna be a tough out for them. But Louisville, they're in a similar boat where they have Duke and then they have at Miami. And Miami, I think we both agree, are better than I think the perception of them is because of that Georgia Tech loss. But Virginia Tech and Virginia, very, very beatable football teams. And then Kentucky's out of conference. So like Louisville, both these teams right now are probably fighting for the conference championship, right? That second spot. And I think both these teams believe that they can, really do some damage in the ACC. I think it's awesome. It sucks that Riley Leonard's been hurt. I think if Duke it's going to win this football game, they're going to have to run the football well and trust in Mike Elko's defense, get some short fields, capitalize on turnovers, which they typically do as a Duke football team. But yeah, it's going to be about run the football for both these teams. You mentioned Joe Air Jordan. Both these football teams need to run the football.
Oregon State at Arizona. Uh, a game that I feel like people are not talking about when this has gigantic implications on the Pac-12. This is a tough barn to go into. So Rice Eccles, Arizona at home, getting 3 in the hook. Oregon State playing incredible football, but so is Arizona right now. And the Fafita, what is he, like 5'7", 5'8"? I mean, just slinging balls all around the yard. Slinging them. That kid is playing out of his mind right now, and he's got the weapons around him. And you know what? Gosh dang it, that defense for Arizona has greatly improved this year. It has greatly improved. And part of that is because they got guys in there now, larger guys in the interior, guys that they don't normally have that size, that caliber. This is a tough game to pick for. What are your thoughts?
I've been really impressed with how Arizona's played the past few weeks. I think they had a bye week. I think both these teams had a bye, if I'm not mistaken. So there's not really an advantage there either way. But golly, man, Arizona just since the new quarterback has been thrust in there, they've been really impressive. They should have beat USC, no doubt about it. And then being in a 7-point football game against Washington is really, really impressive as well. The problem is I love Judd Fish. Love him. But I do think Oregon State, I think Jonathan Smith, they're going to be ready to play out of the bye. They understand what kind of position they're in terms of legit Pac-12 championship aspirations and even college football playoff aspirations if they were to do so. Right? I think they believe that their roster is constructed enough to where they can do that. DJU after the bye week, you get them settled in one more time. 15-4 touchdown interception ratio has been pretty good. He's taking care of the football right outside that one football game, which you lost. The key here is going to be able to run the football. In Arizona, yes, they're much improved defensive line interiorly. I just trust that your running game and defense can travel on the road in the Pac-12. And you can get a win here. I'm going to take Oregon State to win, and obviously I'll take the 3.5 points.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. Would it shock you if I told you that Arizona is the 14th best run defense in the country in terms of total yards per game?
Before this year, absolutely. I mean, but you've seen it in their games. You've absolutely seen it.
We've seen it. And what is the major difference between Noah Fafita and, our boy,
Jaden Delora?
Turnovers. It's a huge difference right there. Give me Arizona in their barn to win this game straight up. Here's why. Arizona's 2 plays away from being 6-1 right now.
And think about how differently we would be thinking about Arizona right now. Beating USC, beating Mississippi State, and barely lost to Washington.
Yeah. I think, look, I know Oregon State's coming off the bye, but the reality is, like, they have, in their eyes, tougher games ahead of them. They have tougher games ahead of them. This is Arizona's chance to, like, the USC loss was heartbreaking, right? And they pounded Washington State. That was a statement, right? But this is a chance to, like, establish themselves as a top half Pac-12 team. If they go in this game and they win, Like, there's a reason that this line is at 3.5. Like, I think Vegas understands that Arizona, like, this is a top 30, 25 power rated team in the country
Yeah.
easily. Now, granted, Oregon State's top 15, right? But yeah, give me Arizona at home. I think Noah Fafita has just been playing awesome, and I think he's absolutely breaking standards right now for guys his size. I mean, kind of that stigma of not being able to play like at that size. He's slinging the ball around the yard, and I love it. I'm here for it. And they're still throwing the ball. They're still throwing the ball effectively. They run the ball. Their top half running the ball in the country. I mean, granted, Oregon State's defense has showed up at times, but uh, we saw them uh play on the road, and they've done well in certain games on the road. But I just think Arizona finds a way to get it done. I really do. Give me
No,
the
and
fighting
I
Jet
wouldn't be
Fishes.
surprised. I love that. I think it's something you bring up, Vita. I think it's really interesting to think about the differences between these quarterbacks, right? You have DJU, who's massive, 6'5", 250 pounds, maybe 250 plus, right? Huge arm, high 5-star talent, right? From a dominating, I think he was from St. John Bosco in California. And then you also have Noah Fafita, who's, oh, and by the way, DJU is a veteran guy. I played a ton of football games. Noah Fafita is redshirt freshman, right? From Servite in Anaheim, California, who was pretty under recruited as a 3-star. And he's like super short. So like it's awesome to see the differences in these quarterbacks. But it goes to show you in college football, like winning comes in all different ways. And both these players and have had a ton of success. And these teams have had success in large part due to the quarterback play that they've had. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you bring up a great point with that schedule dynamics there. I do think Oregon State and Jonathan Smith are veteran led, and like I think they understand the importance of this game. I think they understand that Arizona is much better than that 4-3 record that they have, right? And just because Oregon State's ranked in the top 11 doesn't mean they're going to go in there and win. I think they understand that. But if you get past Arizona, you've had Colorado, sure, right? Might be tough, might not be. Stanford should be a win. And then you get into your grind there. I think they understand that this is step one into making the Pac-12 championship game. For Arizona, yeah, I do think like you do have to learn how to win football games. And I doesn't mean that they can't do it, but I do think like they've been in close games all year, and more often than not, other than Stanford, like they've lost those games. And I think Oregon State's veteran enough to be able to win this football game, especially because I think we both think it's gonna be close. Vegas does too, but I think Oregon State will get it, come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away like the Utah game, right, they got at home when Utah's offense was totally dysfunctional. I'm gonna take that out of the data set. If you leave the rest of the teams in there and take out Utah, they've been giving up 30 points a game in the Pac-12 defensively. Oregon State has. So if you're gonna give me a shootout, I don't think Jed Fish is gonna make the mistake of not being aggressive late in the game, like he was against Utah when they didn't go for two there. I think they're locked in, dude. Also, too, like this is a very easy part of your schedule for Oregon State to sleepwalk through because, like you said, Stanford, Colorado, Stanford, you could easily sleepwalk through this part of the schedule in your brain because there's coaches that are already looking at Washington. They have coaches on their staff that are already looking at Washington right now and how to defend that. And I'm just saying, like, if you don't have all your resources ready for this game, I mean, they might be in for a surprise. So I will be fading you with your.
Yeah.
I'll be taking Arizona.
How do you think the wide receivers of Arizona are gonna? You think they're gonna feast against Arizona State or Oregon State? I'm talking about McMillan and Cowing.
I do. I don't know what. Do you not think so?
No, I think it will absolutely. I think the over is an interesting play here for sure. But the problem is with if Oregon State's going to win this football game, which I believe they will, I think they're going to hopefully try to control the game, run the football, slow down the clock, get their defense rest, make Fafita like have pressure in his mind that like, hey, we got to win this football game. We got to win. We got to get a touchdown on every possession, and that's when he makes a mistake, even though he's been very, very impressive all year long. I think that's what I would lean toward would be the over at 56.5 is And yes, it's a higher number, but
Yeah, and like I think a lot of people are gonna say like, oh well, Matthew, that rushing stat that you gave about Arizona, that's totally skewed, right? Because they played a team like Mississippi State. Mississippi State ran the ball 30 times that game. So like Arizona has stepped up in the run game this year. And if this game, if you're asking me, can DJU do it on the road? Maybe he can. I don't know. But if you're gonna put it on DJU in the fourth quarter on the road, Granny's been playing really well. I'm gonna take Arizona.
yeah. Who do you think is a better quarterback matchup here? Who's a better quarterback, Fafita or DJU for this one game?
It's hard to say. I mean, because like you're looking at DJU and you can't not have bias, right, from what you've seen in his lows, right? And in Noah Fafita's case, like we haven't seen the lows, right? We haven't seen what that looks like.
And they could come in this game, but also like DJU like has been pretty productive in what they've asked him to do. Fafita though, I think he has more on his shoulders, which is crazy as a small freshman guy. I like it's really interesting. Really, really
They're still
interesting.
averaging they're still averaging 5 yards a carry in the run game. So it's not like they can't run the ball, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But also like if you have those wide receivers, Cowling and McMillan, you're gonna take advantage of them. Jed Fish knows that. It's a night game. This is a 9:30 game. If you're on Central Time Zone, obviously it's 7:30 local time. We love that. We love late night Pac-12 football games. Gives you something to do, at midnight.
There's not many left.
Yeah, cherish them.
Tennessee at Kentucky. Wow, did I have a hard time picking this game? Did I have a hard time picking this game or what? Because both of these quarterbacks have shown me that at times they can be very bad. And both these teams have both shown me that they can run the ball effectively sometimes, but they've also shown me when they can't run the ball effectively, they are absolutely screwed. So what's the play here? Kentucky getting 3 and a hook at home. I'm taking Tennessee, and I'm taking the points. I just think their defense is a little better than Kentucky's. I think they're going to get to Devin Leary. Devin Leary stinks. I don't know what happened, dude. Like, he stinks. I cannot trust him to win an important game in the SEC, aside from the Florida game. But what did he do in that Florida game besides throw for, 50 yards? That's it. That's all he did. I cannot trust that. Now, I know Joe Milton may have his moments where he's Joe Milton. But it felt like last game in the first half, right? They at least had something going there, right? Like on script, like some of those receivers made plays. Keaton's still having drop issues, but he also made some plays. Squirrel White looked really good. Once again, Tennessee's been running the ball really, really effectively. That's been their bread and butter. But what's just been awesome to see is that their defense has been absolutely balling out. So I'm taking Tennessee here solely for the reason, even though they're on the road, I get that. Going on the road in the SEC is tough. I just think Tennessee, they know that they still have a chance. Well, not really. I mean, they lost 2. They need Georgia to lose another game, which is a lot here, but they got a chance to make a New Year's 6 if they win out. There's still something to play for Tennessee, I think. And same with Kentucky, right? I'm not an idiot, right? Thinking like, whatever, like that Kentucky can't do anything either. But I believe in this Tennessee team more than I believe in this Kentucky team. And I am actually not high on really either team, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I think Tennessee, I go on the road. They can get a win here. I think this is a much different football team, especially on the O-line than we saw the last time they went on the road and really struggled with Florida. I thought they played well last week, well enough to win, especially in that first half. Second half, we got away from them. But Bama, don't forget, like they have a really good defense. That's a really, really good defense. Tennessee could not run the football with their running backs. The thing I loved is they actually started using Joe Milton in the running game, right?
Yeah.
Get him going and then get him settled into a football game. And then he can make those downfield throws to Squirrel Wright, Keaton, right? And take advantage of the speedsters you have on the outside. And I think Kentucky, I think what it comes down to is like, is it first to 20? Is that who wins this football game? First to 20? And like, I don't see Devin Leary doing that with this Kentucky offense. I think Tennessee stopping the run. They're absolutely going to be able to do that. And we've seen them be able to run the football against good defenses outside of Bama, right, and Florida, right? But since they've gotten their line healthy, that A&M game, really, really impressive. Being able to run the football. I think it's going to come out again in this game. I'm going to take Joe Milton. I'll take the 3.5. I don't care. Even though in a low scoring game, which I think this might be, the hook might be important, but I'll take Tennessee to win this football game and to cover.
Yeah, and for me, like Kentucky, you look at their stats, right, and they're top 20 defense, rush defense, if you look at total yards per game. But the first 4 games of the season, they played nobody. It was Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, Vandy, right? None of those teams are going to be able to run the ball effectively. In fact, you took and Vandy's running back from them, right, and Ray Davis, who's been balling out for you. Florida game, they actually did a good job, but also Florida got behind early, right? And relied on Graham Mertz a little bit there. But back-to-back weeks, Georgia and Mizzou were both able to gash you. And there's a chance that Tennessee's offensive line might be better. When healthy, that their offensive line might be just as good as Georgia's and better than Mizzou's, I think. So I think there's a real chance that Tennessee could gash this defense. I think Kentucky's missing Rodgers there in the interior, going to Auburn. I don't know. I like Tennessee here. I like Tennessee. I think I just don't like Kentucky more than I don't like Tennessee, to be honest.
I think that's what it is. I do want to say this though about Joe Milton. I think, I more than others have been lower on him to begin with because I thought he was overrated. And now I feel like the narrative has shifted to where he's a bad quarterback. And I think people don't understand that. Like, I think the narrative, people are too low on him now. I think he's going to be able to get better as the season's going on, which I think you've seen since that Florida game, and be able to make some plays in this football game. And now I'm almost higher on everybody than Joe Milton. I think he's going to make some plays in this football game.
Yeah, but you can't be any lower on Devin Leary than we already are.
No, and to be honest, there's no reason not to be.
Jeez.
Give
me the better quarterback. Give me the better offensive line. I'm not gonna say Bright and Small are better than Ray Davis, but collectively, I think they have a better running back room than Kentucky does. I think they have. I
would say running game.
I think they have a better defense. I think they have better receivers. I think every part of Tennessee's team is better than Kentucky's team. Is that crazy?
But it's on the road.
Mark Stoops.
That's what I'm saying. Mark Stoops or Josh Heupel.
Which one would I take?
Yeah.
To coach Texas A&M or to coach whatever team?
To coach their respective teams. Like in this coaching matchup. We talk about that a lot. Like,
oh, yeah, coaching matchup. I'll take Josh Heupel.
Yeah. I think that offense is weird. That offense is hard to stop. And it can expose parts of your secondary or your defense that are vulnerable. And usually they do a good job of finding those matchups.
I agree. Colorado at UCLA. Why are we talking about this game? Well, UCLA's got a new quarterback now. Garbers. Coming back in the game, Dante Moore benched. Probably good for the kid. Colorado on a bit of a skid right now. It's just hard to beat that team. It's hard to not have depth. It's hard if you're Travis Hunter playing 156 snaps with a lacerated liver. It's hard to do that. UCLA is also at home too. This line's 17. That's a pretty big spread. UCLA at home. Now, I'm not saying that the Rose Bowl is an insane home field advantage because it's not, right? But at least they're not going to Boulder, which, I guess doesn't matter if you're Stanford, right? I don't know. I think this is an easy pick for me. Obviously, you're taking UCLA to win, right? I'm also taking UCLA to cover. I think that offense looked more confident. I think, early in the season when Garbers was playing, players, they responded better when Dante Moore came in, right? They play with more energy and whatever, but I think then the team they had more energy when Garbers came in last week, and they did well, dude. They did very, very well. So I don't think Garbers is by any means an elite player, but I do think this UCLA defense is really good.
That's where I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna agree with you here. I'll take UCLA to win. and I'll swallow the 17 points, and it's because of that defense. It's because of that defense. We've seen Colorado's offense struggle against really good defenses, and UCLA I think deserves to be in that upper echelon, if not tier one of Pac-12 defenses. And with their running game, Carson Steele, TJ Harden really finding their stride the last couple of weeks. That's not good recipe for a Colorado defensive line that's been gashed. Now, also, this one really, really scares me because some teams like come out of a bye, and Colorado, who needed a bye week more than Colorado? We've talked about depth on that football team, some injuries they've had. They needed a bye week bad. And obviously the heartbreaking loss in double overtime against Stanford, blowing that big lead. You definitely needed to go into the bye week. And it kind of gave them a better taste in their mouth. And I'm sure that Deion Sanders and staff there used that to their advantage. The problem is like Colorado needs to win 2 games to make a bowl game. And I don't see 2 wins on their schedule. I just don't. But I do think they do. I think they can make a bowl game. And they have the talent to beat, one of those top teams in the Pac-12 if they get an opportunity to, offensively at least. It's hard. I don't want to overthink myself. I'm just going to take UCLA in the points. But it wouldn't shock me to see this, especially in the first half. Colorado comes out swinging. On the road at UCLA is not that hostile of an environment. I'm not too worried about that. I just think the defense and running game of UCLA is going to put it out of hand early.
I think Latu's going to eat, dude. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to hate himself after this game.
Another good point. But also, like, you have 2 weeks to prepare for that. Chip blocks, run the football. It's been a little bit better running the football if you're Colorado. Not great. But, yeah, I think there are ways to avoid Latu, but also, like, there's other really good players on that defensive roster, and you still have to stop UCLA too. And the problem is if it gets out of hand early, it could really it could get ugly for Colorado, which we saw in a couple of their games so far. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this UCLA team is very polished too. I think they're good. I think the Oregon State game has a tough team. Oregon State's really good. UCLA bounced back though. I'm a big fan of this UCLA team. Again, I took their over 8.5. I think they can still get to 9. That includes they got to win this game at home for sure. Do we know what time this game's at? It's 6:30 Central.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I think they can do it, man. I think they can cover that 17 for sure. I don't see there's no way Colorado wins this game, right? I mean, there's just no way.
I don't know. I mean, in what game other than Oregon have they really looked like they do not belong? They have no chance to win that football game.
The first half of the USC game?
For sure.
The second half of the Stanford game? So, I don't
that's
know.
true.
If you put those two together, I mean, that's 2 full games, I guess, that they've looked like they stink.
That's true. But also, like, I don't know, man. I wouldn't count out this Colorado football team in any game that they play in. No, and they could lose by 30, and I wouldn't be surprised. But also, like, it wouldn't shock me if Colorado wins this football game. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to predict it. I'm still taking UCLA to cover. Like, that's how little confidence I feel in that. But also, like, the potential is there off of bye week, schedule dynamics. UCLA may be looking ahead to they're looking at the rest of their schedule and they're like, hey, this is like pretty routine. Like they're looking at everybody. Like, Arizona is their hardest game left, I think, at Arizona. Right. And we feel pretty good about Arizona, but also, like, UCLA thinks they can win that football game and run the table. So, yeah.
I agree. UNLV at Fresno State. What a matchup in the Mountain West. UNLV 6-1, undefeated in conference right now. They're first place in the Mountain West along with Air Force. Their only loss, Michigan. That's it. Now, granted,
they stole their signs. No, I'm just kidding.
And they stole their signs. No, and then Colorado State game. That was a close one. But guess what? UNLV finding a way to win ball game. Fresno State was also in a dogfight with Utah State last time that they were out there playing. against Cooper Lega, absolute bowl game legend. That guy is, and Utah State has really good wide receivers too, probably as good as Fresno State. And they found a way to win that game without Mikey Keene, who, by the way, is probably not playing this game either. But here's what I'll say about that: Logan Fife, he's played well. Played well last game. And you know what he did better last game that he hasn't done his entire career? He took care of the football. And he used his legs when he needed to. Which I think it gives him a little bit of an advantage over Mikey Keene. I think he's got a little bit better legs, but Logan Fife took care of the football. So let's talk about UNLV. Barry Odom in his first year. How about that? How about that? With a redshirt freshman quarterback who didn't start the year, but he's been playing well. They've run the ball. They got 3 running backs in there. Thomas, I guess Lester's their starter, right? And then Reese as well, kind of as a change of pace. This is a ball team that knows how to win games. Ball team that knows how to win games. They're 13th in the country, rushing yards per game. Only 83rd in pass offense, but they don't really need it to. They don't really need to. They've been running the ball really effectively. It's not one game it's Thomas, one game it's Lester. Early on it was Reese. I mean, it's been everyone. So finding a way. But what has impressed you the most about Barry Odom so far?
I do think like responding after they hired Bobby Petrino, right? And then it got plucked out of them from A&M, and then they responded, and their offense has been fantastic. And Barry Odom's a defensive coach, right? We've seen him be a very successful defensive coordinator in the SEC. But they move the football, they run the football, they throw the football well. They got a really good wide receiver in Ricky White, who they were expecting to take a jump from year 2 to year 3, and it sounds like he's done that. We've seen on the field 600 yards, almost matching his output from all last year combined. They've done it on the road, they've done it at home, they've beaten Vanderbilt. Say what you want about Vanderbilt, but that's still an impressive win for UNLV in year 1. I mean, they've almost played better on the road than they have at home. I mean, is that crazy to say? And they're going on the road here in Fresno State. Obviously, 9:30 p.m. game on FS1 there. If you're looking to watch that game, which I highly recommend you do, there's a reason to recover in this game. Excuse me. This has very serious Mountain West implications. Very serious Mountain West implications. UNLV is undefeated in conference. Fresno State has 1 loss, right? Wyoming has 1 loss. Boise State has 1 loss. Like, there's a lot of teams fighting for that second spot, which Air Force seems to maybe have distanced themselves from everybody else. But UNLV still has a chance to beat Air Force later in the year, right? This is step 1 to making that happen, giving themselves some leeway on maybe that's other second place team in the Mountain West. Is it crazy to say that Michigan's best win is UNLV? I mean, I don't.
No,
it's kind of
it's not
sad,
crazy.
but UNLV is a legit football team, right? The last time you probably saw them play was getting boat raced by Michigan, but they've taken care of business everywhere else. But
Yeah, I do think like the thing about this defense that's improved, right? In the run game, they're solid. Like their linebacking core, very good. Jackson Woodard, very great leader, right? Making plays, he's a leading tackler. But then they got guys that are fresh, like rotating in there in the middle. I mean, McDuffie and Tompkins. I mean, those are also really good linebackers as well, and I think it benefits them that they're always fresh, right? And UNLV has not been hit by the injury bug at all this year. Knock on some wood, right? Knock on some wood, but I think that's a huge reason that this defense has been successful as it is. Granted, that's their run defense. Their pass defense has not particularly been good. Now, if you look at yards per game, right, they're looking at right now 124th in yards per game allowed. And you're like, well, they've been up in every game, right? So teams are passing the ball a lot. They're also 126th in yards per attempt given up, 8.8. That's not really great. But also what's helped them, they have the best turnover margin in the entire country. UNLV does, which is good. Well, we know what we say about turnovers. I mean, sometimes it's not repeatable. in an individual college football game, like the turnover margin variation is large. It can happen to anyone. And Logan Fife, granted, is prone to turnovers in his past, right? Now, last game he took care of the football, but I'm not going to say he's gotten rid of that, bad habit of turning the ball over. But if he's playing that game and he doesn't turn the ball over all that much, what is UNLV going to do? Offensively for Fresno State, they're the 15th best passing offense in the country. So interesting matchup for UNLV right there. They've struggled to run the ball sometimes. Even against Utah State, like most of the running came in the second half and came on that big run from Sherrod. But their wide receiver core is sick, right? Eric Brooks, who we saw early in the season, absolutely light everyone up. He's cooled off. And you know why? Because the depth in this receiving core is crazy. Crazy. So they got some guys, both of the Jalen Moss, Jalen Gill, very solid players. So I'm a big fan of both of these teams. Huge fan of both of these teams. Defensively, Fresno State's been effective against the run, but part of that is not a lot of teams really try to run the ball on them, right? But I will say this: Wyoming tried to run the ball on them, and for a guy Whaley who's averaged 7 yards a carry this year, Fresno State held him to 3.7 on the road. Now they lost that game, but something to think about. So 7.5. That's a lot for an in-conference game with conference championship implications on the line. That is a big line to me. Where are you going with this?
I think it really matters where this game is being played. And to be honest, I was full on ready to go UNLV at the beginning of this week. I didn't really care who played Mikey Keene or Fafita, right? Or Fafi,
Five. Yeah.
Five. Sorry, but Five. And then the line dropped to 7.5. I know it didn't cross any key numbers, but that just made me kind of rethink it. I do love UNLV's team. I think
granted, UNLV is 6-1 against the spread this year. Fresno State's 3-4.
I'll point
that out.
Yes, absolutely. But I think Fresno State in the one game where they really did struggle was at Wyoming, and like everybody struggles at Wyoming, right? So like
War Memorial is a tough barn to play.
And I know our Mountain West fans, our viewers there, absolutely understand that. I'm going to take Fresno State and to win. And I've been going back and forth here. I'll swallow the points. I think 7.5 is a tough line to cross, but I think Fafit gets it done. I think they can move the football and exploit the defense of weaknesses that UNLV may have. Although I wouldn't be surprised if UNLV wins. I think Barry Lim is going to have a good game plan on Fife and the wide receivers that Fresno State brings to the table. But yeah, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Drop to 7.5. Look, UNLV struggled in the pass game, and turnover margin is not necessarily repeatable. Granted, Fresno State has a top 10 turnover margin in the country. So both teams are turning the ball over at an exceptionally high rate. So you could also argue that, Fresno State's might come down as well. But UNLV, they're 1.7 turnovers per game, turnover margin per game. Second is 1.3. That is a gigantic gap between 1 and 2. That's a gigantic gap. If you're looking at the stats there, that is a gigantic gap. So I'm going to take the points. I think Fresno State, granted, they don't have to run the ball. They don't. And you know what's nice too? Like Logan Fife, I think they could add him to the run game. Now, granted, if Mikey Keene's not healthy, it might not be smart to throw your backup quarterback and really get him moving around. But I also think that Jeff Dad likes the third string. Blanking on his name at the moment, but he was in the conversations of potentially competing for a spot, in early summer and fall. So I think they have confidence in their third guy there as well. I think it's just a more talented team. I think UNLV, not that their run is over this year, they're bowl eligible. I think they'll do great the rest of the way in the Mountain West. I think there's a huge gap in some of those bottom teams in the Mountain West and them. So I think they will get their wins. They could get the 9 wins. They could get the 10 wins, maybe. I don't know. My guess would be, though, that they end around 8 wins. I think Fresno State gets it here. And I will say this as well. Since the line has dropped to 7.5, I'm going to find it, but I believe that there's some 7.5s at minus 115. If that line drops, let's see. No. They're mostly at 105. Screw it. I'm gonna add it to Dawson's Diner. It's not on there, but I was gonna wait and see if it dropped to 7. I don't think it's gonna drop to 7. I'm gonna take it. I'm adding it to Dawson's Diner. Give me Fresno State minus 7.5 at home in a huge game. I could regret this. Mariota might make me look like an idiot, but I think Fresno State gets it done, man. I think they do.
I love it. I love it.
Troy at going to San Marcos, Texas State. Both teams are playing really well this year. Texas State exceeding expectations like none other. TJ Finley, who in the SEC was a rather pedestrian quarterback, has looked incredible this year. He's looked incredible. Gunnar Watson, he's been fine. He's been good enough at quarterback this year to play well. What's really done well for Troy is, right, their defense has been lights out. Their passing offense has been efficient, not necessarily electric, but it's been efficient. And they've been running the ball an absolute ton, right? Now, everyone wants to talk about Kamani Vidal, right? Because he, leads the nation with 951 rushing yards up to this point, which is like 60 yards more than second place, right? He's been dominant. But let's talk about what's on the other side. Texas State, Body, their running back. Now, granted, he didn't even lead the team in carries last week. I know his wrist's been bothering him, but I mean, his wrist was bothering him at the end of the Louisiana game, and he ran for like 188 yards. Mahdi is second in the nation in all-purpose yards, only behind Ashton Gianti for Boise State. So these are two teams that have quarterbacks that are playing really efficient football. These are two teams that have really good running games. Both teams have really good receivers. In fact, I would argue that Auburn Hawkins for Texas State is arguably top 25, top 30 wide receiver duo in the country. But I mean, if you look at Troy, 31st in rushing offense, 49th in passing offense, 17th in run defense, 17th or 18th in pass defense in the country. This is a team that probably power rates in the top 30, which is wild as a Sun Belt team. This Texas State team, right? They're 16th in the country in rushing offensively, 37th in the country passing offensively. Defensively, though, not as good. Not as good. They're giving up about 4.9 yards per carry the last 3 games, which is bottom 25. And they're giving up 7.3 yards per attempt in the last 3 games as well, which is about the middle of the road. So I don't know, 4.5. It is at home, though. It is in San Marcos. And that place will be bumping for sure. It's always tough to play on the road in conference. It really is. And when TJ Finley's playing at the level that he is, and Mahdi's cruising with the ball, if he's healthy with his wrist, it's hard to get wins on the road, right? Where are you going with this?
It's really hard because, when you're picking games, you see 2 somewhat evenly matched teams, right? 2 teams playing well. You have TJ Finley, who is a better quarterback than Gunnar Watson, or at least has been playing fantastic. And they're at home. It's hard to not pick Texas State, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to fade him. I'm going to go John Summerall and Troy. I think they're just really good. I think they're playing fantastic football. Texas State struggled against UL Monroe. Now, yes, they had a bye week, but they've kind of, since that high of scoring 50 points against Southern Miss, they've kind of been regressing a little bit towards the mean. And I do think that bye week's going to help them for sure, but not in this game. I'm going to go Troy. I do think people overlook that win against Georgia State. Georgia State's a good football team, right? Arkansas State with Jalen Raynor, good team. Army in the middle of the season to shut them out, to blank them is very, very impressive. I'm gonna go Troy here. I think Gunnar Watson gets it done. I think they can run the football on the road. Their defense has been playing good, if not actually fantastic in recent weeks. I think they shut down TJ Finley. I think they forced him to throw a couple interceptions, and they get it done on the road in conference play. And then they really, they're leading or in the Sun Belt there. They're winning their division, right? They've got a chance to meet up again with James Madison in the conference championship game, which would be a fantastic game. But yeah, I'm gonna go Troy here. What say you?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like Troy, if you look, I think they're 49th in yards per carry on the year, but that is not really tells a full story. Last 3 games, they're 10th in the country in yards per carry. So that's pretty good. So once they've hit the Sun Belt, they've gotten rolling. And 8.5 yards per attempt passing wise, that's good for 25th in the country. So again, really, really efficient in the passing game. So I'll take Troy and I'll take the 4.5. But let me explain to you how Texas State wins this football game. Troy, despite having a very good running attack and a very efficient pass game, they have not been good on third down this season. 37%. That is bottom quadrant, bottom third in the country. Let me tell you this about Texas State. They average 9 tackles for loss per game. 9. You know what that's good for in the country? That's good for third in the entire country. They have 63 tackles for loss on the year. You know that they're behind Oklahoma and Texas A&M. That's it. 22 players on Texas State have recorded a tackle for loss. So it's not just a few players eating up. While granted, Brian Holloway leads the way, having 9 himself, which is absurd at this point in the season. He plays linebacker for them. That's a recipe. If they get like early downs, if Kamani Vidal, if they get some TFLs, right, and force Gunnar Watson back in like extreme passing situations where he's not comfortable, I could see Texas State forcing this Troy offense into bad field position. And if they win the field position battle this game at home, I think they can win this game. So key for Texas State, continue to get negative plays. Now, you could say the same thing about Troy. I mean, can Texas State stop Javon Solomon? I mean, 6 sacks on the year. I mean, he's been lights out, rushing the passer, lights out. Very, very good football player. And overall, his Troy defense has been really good. While they haven't produced as many tackles for loss as Texas State is, they're still top half team in that department, creating negative plays, havoc percentage. If you look at that, if you find that stat very important. I do think this Troy team's more talented. It's better coached. Give me Troy in the 4.5, but I could see Texas State winning this game for sure.
No doubt about it.
It's time to talk about our upset meter. Oh boy. 2 weeks ago, we did a fantastic job. Picked some really steamy ones and even capitalized on an upset there. Last week, I don't think we got an upset there. Missed a couple other key upsets that almost happened and some that did happen. But this week we got 4 teams. We got North Carolina on the road facing Georgia Tech. We got Ohio State playing Wisconsin. That's a 2-touchdown spread. JMU playing Old Dominion. I believe that's a 20-point spread, 17. You'll have to check that for me. Kansas State playing Houston. 17 points is that spread, and they get them at home. So people are asking, why are they on this list? I don't know, man. I don't know. Dana Holgerson fighting for his life out there. I don't know. Let's talk about North Carolina first. They are coming off a brutal loss to Virginia. Yikes. At home, I believe. Jeez. That was it was wild how they lost that game. I think if they played that game 90 more times that they would win 89 of them. I couldn't believe that they lost that game. Georgia Tech prone to playing up in big games. Of course, they're playing at home in Bobby Dodd. Is that Bobby Dodd Stadium? Yeah, over there in Atlanta. I think this one is pretty close to sweating, dude. I think it's like right there. Like this now, granted, this could be recency bias because they didn't play all that well against Virginia, but Georgia Tech has shown up in some games. And their secondary is not the worst secondary that we've ever seen. Granted, their run defense is absolutely horrendous, and they just lost to Boston College because of it. I think if North Carolina decides to run the ball, I think North Carolina can take care of this game easily. But Payne's King, if they hit some explosive plays on offense and find a way to get some turnovers on defense, I can see it happening for sure.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech really did not impress me last week. I thought at times they played well, but they really let that game get out of hand. If you let Tommy Castellanos do that to you, what's Drake May going to do to you, right? And the stable receivers, I think North Carolina is pretty upset after last week. I'm not too worried about this game. I do think on the road at Bobby Dodd is something to consider, but there's a reason why it's 11.5 point spread, right? But I still think North Carolina probably gets this win, even though it might be, a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I don't think like this is mild. It's not quite sweating. I think if they had won last week, I would have put this in sweating. But I think it's because they're coming off of a loss. I put it. I'm pretty close to putting it in sweating. To be honest, I think
Mhm.
that's a pretty good spot. Almost there in sweating. How about Ohio State playing Wisconsin? I'm not worried at all. I'm just gonna say it straight up. Braden Locke, not a great quarterback. This Wisconsin team, not a great team. Ohio State, like if Michigan win in this game, you can make the argument like, oh, Michigan hasn't been battle tested. Ohio State has been battle tested more than several times. So I just don't see like sure Wisconsin might cover the 14, right? But I have zero doubts that Ohio State wins this game. I think this is cold. I don't see them losing this football game at all.
No, and this is not the same Wisconsin teams of old where their defense has a chance to keep them in this game, especially with maybe not as an explosive offense as Ohio State's had in past. Ohio State's going to move the ball in Wisconsin. I mean, you also saw the game. Was it last year? I mean, it was bad. It was very bad. Obviously, a much different Wisconsin team. But yeah, I'm not too worried. Braden Locke, I don't think he'll get it done. This Ohio State defense, that's what gives me no problem at all in this game. Their defense is going to come ready to play. It's fantastic. And yeah, I think it'll be low scoring probably, but I think it might be, 2 or 3 touchdown game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm not worried about this team at all. Let's go ahead and stick them in cold right there. JMU was this on the road? No, they get them at home, right? Old Dominion at home. Old Dominion's coming off kind of a nice win for them, beating Appalachian State. Old Dominion's 4-3. They got a shot at a bowl game. JMU, the second that they were ranked last year, they went on a 4-game skid. Does that happen again this year? I lean towards no. I think JMU, North Carolina are in a similar spot this week. I think in terms of like the mildness of the upset, it's like I think you could argue it's sweating because it's a conference game, and JMU just came off a pretty big win last week, and I don't know. I think I mean it's a 20-point spread for a reason, right? This isn't like Arizona USC where we were like, that's ridiculous, right? That's a ridiculous spread. Why is that spread the way it is? I think this has legitimate foundation. Jordan McLeod's been playing awesome. Jamie's run the ball really well. Their defense looked phenomenal. And even their secondary looked phenomenal, which we said has been struggling this year. They look phenomenal against Georgia Southern, who's prone to exposing those kinds of secondaries. So JMU, very balanced team. I think they beat Old Dominion. I think this one in North Carolina are kind of interchangeable in that mild, almost sweating area. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think James Madison, pretty good football team. They do have extended rest. They played, I believe, on Thursday of last week. They beat Marshall, and Old Dominion played a really tough game that came down to the last minute against Appalachian State. And yes, now Old Dominion believes they can win this football game, but I don't love the fact that it's in James Madison. Right? I feel like they're going to come ready to play. I think they're going to learn from last year, being ranked, then going on to lose a bunch of games in a row. Not this year, not James Madison this year, not the Dukes. Give me James Madison for sure. I'm not too worried.
Yeah, we're gonna throw it in right there. Just know that I think these are interchangeable, right? Right?
Yeah.
I think these are interchangeable. They're right about in this range right here. I think both these guys. Of course, it's hard to fit that into the graphic. So let's talk about Kansas State now. They are, I believe, 17-point favorites. while I'm finding that, you want to talk about this game?
Yeah, they're playing Houston after Houston, lost a close one to Texas. Now, yes, it helped that for Houston that Quinn Ewers got hurt. Houston started making plays. They made it close. They had a chance to go down and tie the football game or win it if they chose a 2-point conversion in the last couple minutes there. Weird fourth down play, whatever. I mean, I think Houston has been playing good football as of late. They beat a really good West Virginia team, right? And they hung in there with Texas. I think Houston's got a real chance to go in and beat Kansas State. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff game. Not that
Yeah.
Kansas State's known for sleepwalking, but they lose a game or two every year that they probably shouldn't lose. It was Oklahoma State earlier in the year, but Oklahoma State's been playing fantastic. And I think Houston has a real chance to get it done this year. I think Donovan Smith's playing well. I think they can run the ball okay against Kansas State, even though it's at home for Kansas State. I think they're classic look ahead spot here.
Huge look ahead spot. Because that Texas game, Kansas State has 2 losses, but only one in the Big 12, right? Like they have a legitimate shot. Like they beat Texas, like they're on the trajectory to potentially make the Big 12 championship game. So like that is their Super Bowl as of right now. And they're like, oh, Houston at home. I don't even know. I don't know if this is their homecoming. This would probably be a good game to have their homecoming if you're an athletic director or whatever, whoever schedules that kind of thing. I think this is a huge look ahead spot. The line's at 17.5, 17 in some places. If you're looking at Unibet or Bet Rivers, you get that minus 17 for minus 113. Kansas State's been playing fantastic football recently. They've played fantastic football, and I think that the market represents that very well. But just a huge look ahead spot. I could see Houston making this kind of a ball game. But then again, on the road, it's always tough to play on the road. So I don't know.
I do think it's weird.
This is a sweating for sure.
I'd agree with you there. I do think it's just weird, the 2 quarterback system. Not that I don't like it. It's just I do think it is cause for concern at times. I think you can get into a game where it just doesn't work, and neither quarterback can get into a rhythm, and the offense just stalls out, especially an 11 a.m. kickoff game. I think Houston's got a chance to take advantage of that. Dana Holgorsen looking for a signature win, right? Last week, tried to get it against Texas, couldn't get it done. But now I think they have a real chance to beat Kansas State here. And Kansas State is a good football team, and they might turn around and beat Texas. But I just think the Big 12 this year just has a lot of teams that are just kind of fighting with each other. And every given week, you've got a chance to beat a major upset, and I think this would be that.
I think this is a good lineup right here. I think this is pretty good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great week.
To recap, we got Ohio State in the cold territory, JMU playing Old Dominion at home, kind of mild, and in the mild, almost sweating area is also North Carolina playing Georgia Tech on the road, and then Kansas State at home, 17.5-point spread. We have them sweating against Houston. We have them sweating. So again, rules for the upset meter, of course, these are all larger than 10-point spreads, right? So everyone wants to pick their upsets that are under a touchdown, right? But no, we're looking for real upsets. That's what we look for here. We're trying to snipe. And like every week we've done this, except last week, one of these teams has lost.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't think we're crazy for having this list. Do not think we're crazy. Like stuff like this happens all the time. It's crazy. I love it.
Well, yeah, and if you have a team or a matchup that you're really interested in us talking about, but it's a huge spread, and we probably won't cover it right in our actual in-depth breakdown videos, let us know. Send a comment, send an email, DM, Twitter DM, and we'll absolutely talk about it. Secondly, isn't it awesome to see James Madison on upset alert? Like how awesome is that? Like even though we think it's pretty mild, but
we love covering JMU. But they're a wagon right now. They're an absolute wagon. Let's get into Dawson's Diner, baby. The unders went 3-1 last week. We're gonna ride the under train, continue to ride it. But guess who comes back to make an appearance? A team that's been good to us. That team is Arkansas State, a short dog against Lou Monroe. Give me Arkansas State, the fighting Jalen Raiders, +2. Butch Jones. Their eyes on a potential bowl game this year. And if they're going to do that, they need to win this game. I think they're on the road. I don't care. I don't care. Tennessee, Kentucky under 51.5. We talked about that. Joe Milton versus Devin Leary. Come on. Both teams are going to try to run the ball, control the game. Give me the under there. I know I took the Tennessee Alabama under last week. It was not good to me. Almost cashed though. Fumble recovery touchdown kind of blew it for me. But Duke Louisville under 47. This is a Mike Elko play right here. This is Riley Leonard's not 100%, even if he's not playing, right? Backup quarterback. Good old Henry. I don't know that he's going to be putting up points. I think Louisville is going to try to run the ball for sure. I don't know that Jack Plummer is going to be able to take advantage. Miles Jones, I've said some good things. I've said some pretty mild things about Miles Jones, but he's proved me wrong along the way. He's been awesome. So I think he has a good chance to shut down Jamari Thrash. And then the Ohio Bobcats are playing the Miami Fighting Brett Gabberts. But Miami does not have Brett Gabbert. So how do you expect this game to go over 39.5 when the Fighting Brett Gabberts don't have Brett Gabbert? These are two of the better defenses in the MAC. I think now weird stuff happens in the MAC. I get it. Okay, if this soars over, all right, we'll talk about it, right? But this is just a value play for me. Also forgot to mention the Duke Louisville under 47. I believe right now, as of Wednesday, those lines are at 46 and 46.5. I would still take 46.5. If it dips below 45.5, it'd be hard for me to justify taking that. Ohio Miami, I believe you can still get at 39.5, 39. 39 is still a good number. Tennessee, Kentucky, you can get that at 51.5. Yeah, there might be 52s at some places. Arkansas State, I think you can get 50 or plus 2.5 at some places for like minus 112 as well. So, but then adding to this list that's not featured here that we talked about earlier, Fresno State minus 7.5. Adding on there. So 5 plays. Tennessee, Kentucky under 51.5. Duke, Louisville under 47, probably 46.5 if you can still get at that. Miami, Ohio versus Ohio under 39.5. Arkansas State plus 2 or 2.5. You can get that at some places. And then Fresno State minus 7.5. So I feel good about that slate. I actually feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. So no, I think another bounce back week. The unders continue to be good for you. And Jalen Raynor. Right, go to what you know, and that's what you're doing this week. I love it.
Go to the well, baby. Go to the well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the Redshirt Sophomore Week 9 preview. Again, your support's been awesome. Road to 100 subscribers. We're almost there. We're in the 90s. That's pretty wild. I would have not guessed that we were at this point just a few months later after we started this podcast. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Let us know in the comments what kind of teams we should preview. If we're missing injuries, right? Because I like covered injuries, but sometimes it's hard to find that information. So let me know for also, for our purposes, if you guys know something that we don't know, please let us know. These other teams you want us to cover. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions on these games? We love hearing everything from everyone. We respond well. Follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft and email us questions. We always try to open our mailbag at the redshirtsophomore@gmail.com. So anything else from UCD?
No, thanks for the support. Enjoy another great week at college football. Obviously, bet responsibly if you're gonna do so. Partake in that, but yeah, just enjoy it. I mean, we're almost in November now, and it's gone by so fast, but we've loved every minute of it.
Absolutely, and we will see you guys in the next one.